So, welcome to COVID-19 Observations, Strategies, Tactics, and Tips for Senior Living. My name is John Hewen, and I am with Community Living Solutions. We're an architecture, planning, and construction firm with offices in Appleton, Wisconsin, Des Moines, Iowa, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. When the pandemic hit in late winter, we had providers reaching out to our architects almost immediately, asking for advice and tips on how to create a safer environment for their residents, staff, and visitors. As we were talking to them, we also reached out to our strategic business partners as well as our state association so that we could learn as much as possible to help our providers where we could. For our discussion today, we're really lucky to have three experts in the field. Our first one is Sandra Norder. Sandra is the president and CEO of St. Paul Elder Services. They've got a campus in Kaukauna, Wisconsin, as well as one in Green Bay. Second, Jeff Thorne. Jeff is the vice president of operations for St. Therese. Again, a multi-campus organization. They are based in the Twin Cities. And finally, Dwayne Helwig. Dwayne is our Vice President of Design with Community Living Solutions. So the question for all of you is, knowing that COVID-19 has had an impact on operations, I'm wondering if you would share with our audience three takeaways that you think would be most valuable for them as they continue their navigation through COVID-19.
Communication is key. You cannot over-communicate during a time like this. Transparency has been a priority for us in terms of updating not only our residents, our staff, families, but the community also through social media. We need to let the community know what's happening here, because what's happening in the local nursing home is pretty reflective of what's happening in the local community. And especially at the beginning of the pandemic, it was really important for us to let the community know exactly what our needs were in case there was a situation where we really needed help with something. We would have the community rallying around us. So communication has been daily for me to our staff. It's been at least twice weekly to the families of our residents, and with any new positive COVID case that we've had, it's been within a day or so that we share that news and a little bit about what our plan is for mitigating any sort of risk associated with each positive case. So and I think we found that families have been extremely supportive and understanding, as well as the community, as we have been super transparent with them about what's happening here.
At one of our sites, we got hit very hard and very rapidly with the number of COVID positive cases. And within the first week, we had some of our top three clinical leadership members all became ill with COVID-19 or symptoms of COVID. We had to very quickly respond in filling in other leadership positions. We also had many direct care staff that became ill or had symptoms and needed to be off of work. We actually ended up training many of our own therapy staff, our activity, social workers, other kind of ancillary departments to be caregivers so that they could fill in as needed to take care of the residents. So very thankfully we had that plan ready to activate and did some very quick training as we needed to add more members to that team of people that could provide that direct care.
I think something that we have all learned going forward, we will never go back to the days of people coming to work sick. I know that it's always been in good faith that people have come to work and said, oh, it's just a little sniffle, or oh, it's just a little bit of a cough. I think we have very much learned how viruses work and how scary they can be, and what it takes to prevent their spread, and what it takes to prevent our residents from ever having to feel sick. Even the common cold is not fun for anybody, and we don't want our residents, who are old and frail, in some cases to be experiencing that. And so going forward, the working from home as much as possible for those of us who can will be the way that we go when any of us is feeling ill. And for those of us who can't work from home, our floor staff, we will continue to be very vigilant in having people stay at home when they are sick. That's the silver lining to this pandemic, is we have learned so much about what it takes to keep these kind of bugs out of our facilities, and keeping people home when they're sick is key to that.
The guidelines around the use of PPE was changing so quickly, literally every couple days or week to week, that we had to continually re-educate our employees on what was appropriate use, and had to try to get them to forget what they had been taught previously and relearn a new way of dealing with PPE. So that was a significant challenge for us, both meeting supply as well as that ongoing education for staff to make sure that it was used appropriately, as well as all of the audits and the retraining over and over that we did with staff, really trying to make sure that they were safe, and if they were asymptomatic positive, not transmitting the virus to anyone else.
I think one of the most immediate concerns were residents being able to meet with their family members as soon as possible after the pandemic and the shutdowns began. So being summer in the Midwest right now, I saw some real creative ideas out there as far as how to get family members to meet with residents by taking advantage of the outdoors and the nice weather that we have. So I've seen canopy tents erected right outside at entry, so residents can get right outside and meet their family members, and there's plenty of space for social distancing. And I think it's working really well in those situations now. The difficulty is in the Midwest, we're going to have cold weather soon. So already people that I'm talking to, providers, are thinking about, well, what can we do now when the cold weather hits here in a couple months and we don't have the option of going outdoors? So we're looking at some spaces that can be used indoors, and optimally, I think these spaces would be large enough, obviously, for social distancing. And I don't think it needs to be really big. We're not talking about a lot of people here. Maybe a space that can fit 4 people comfortably, might be a larger conference room. And optimally, I think these spaces would be located close to the front door, or any entry door, actually, just as long as visitors and family members don't have to walk through the facility very far to get to this room. So it's very clean that way. Some ways this room could be set up would be to make sure that the HVAC system is providing a lot of airflow. If it's modifiable, so if we could increase the air exchanges or introduce more outside air, that would be helpful. Even if you want to take it a step further, you could actually add some local filtration to the supply and return air ducts as well too. So just little things that we can do to make the space more safe from an airflow perspective. And I think we also want to make sure that the furniture used in the space is cleanable. But I think very importantly, we want to make sure that the furniture is not too stale as well. So we really want the space to be inviting, warm. We don't want it to be a sterile environment. So trying to balance those two things. And in some ways you can do that is with nice artwork on the walls, knickknacks that really aren't going to be touched. They're maybe off to the side, but they look, it looks more homey that way. And lighting is a big thing too. Rather than having that stale fluorescent light in the ceiling, maybe we could add some task lighting or some lamp lighting in there, and just different layers, just to really make the space feel a little bit more homey and make that interaction time when family members come to visit their residence just a fun time for them and a relaxing time for them.
Thank you, Sandra, Jeff, and Dwayne. That is super insightful information. Information I'm sure providers will find valuable as they're finding ways to create a safer environment for their residents, staff, and visitors. This concludes session 1 of our COVID-19 series. We welcome you to go to YouTube and find our Community Living Solutions channel and subscribe and hit notify. This way you will be notified as the remainder of the 4 sessions are rolled out. At Community Living Solutions, we're a planning, architecture, and construction firm, and we'd welcome the opportunity to sit across the table with you, do a Zoom, whatever it might be, to talk about the challenges you're having and ways that we can help you and create a sustainable environment for your residents long into the future. Thank you, and thank you for the great work you do each and every day.